Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update.
Money FM 89.3, welcome to Industry Insight, where we look at the biggest shifts across sectors, sometimes from sustainability to technology, logistics to policy. And we always speak directly to industry leaders driving those changes. I'm your host, Lynn Lee, and today we're diving into a space that affects everything from your phone to your furniture to your food. I'm talking about ocean freight. Now, let's be honest, the past few years have turned global shipping on its head. We've gone from blank sailings and port pileups to inflationary freight rates, and now a new era of recalibration. But it isn't all smooth sailing. In Asia Pacific, the pressure points are multiplying: infrastructure strain, shifting regulations, geopolitical ripple effects, and a rising demand for transparency, speed, and sustainability. So, where do we go from here? To help us make sense of it all, I'm thrilled to be joined by Lyndon McGrath, Director for Ocean Freight in Oceania at C.H. Robinson, one of the largest and most connected logistics platforms globally. Lyndon, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Lindley. Great to join you today.
Lyndon, looking at your experience, you bring not just deep sectoral knowledge, but a regional view that spans Asia Pacific, from the ports of Shanghai and Singapore to the evolving hubs of Southeast Asia and Oceania. In the last 5 years, ocean freight have been anything but boring. I'm sure you agree. And in Asia Pacific, the stakes are even higher. And I think if my research is correct, it's home to 9 of the world's 10 busiest ports and serves as the beating heart of global manufacturing and trade. So let's talk about here and now in 2025. How would you describe the current state of ocean freight in Asia Pacific? What's stable?
Yeah, thank you, Lindley. You're correct. 5 years of ups and downs, certainly, but the ocean freight in Asia-Pacific region is still feeling the effects of global disruptions. We're seeing mixed conditions throughout the Asia-Pacific region. Ocean freight remains under pressure, but is showing resilience. Capacity constraints in some lanes, while intra-Asia and Southeast Asia trades are more stable. The market remains dynamic. There's much job to be proactive with their planning and forecasting to get through these periods, Lindley.
So what's keeping shippers on their toes?
Look, there's certainly a lot of things happening around carriers and geopolitical issues, but carriers are certainly managing capacity closely, try and restrict supply versus demand. You know, we're seeing the rates fluctuating due to seasonal demands and uncertainties, but currently soft in some lanes. Schedule reliability has improved since 2024, but still sits below historical normals, particularly on the longer trades. Globally, schedule reliability is currently between 50 and 55% on-time performance.
Let's talk more about that. Turning to infrastructure, because all the planning in the world doesn't help if your containers are stuck at port, right? So we're seeing more huge investments across Asia, things like automation, port expansions, digital twins. But is infrastructure really keeping up with demand?
Yeah, it's a good question, and certainly, it ebbs and flows. We see port congestion across some of the major ports like Shanghai, Singapore, on a regular basis now, but that is purely comes down to vessel bunching, the vessels being held up at certain ports, weather conditions holding them up. But certainly we see some issues around the infrastructure, and we do notice that there are some changes being taking place to improve it, but certainly it's still a lot to be done.
Interesting. And do you see a shift in strategy, like are shippers starting to diversify away from the traditional megaports?
Yeah, look, certainly we're seeing a bit of a shift from particularly China and in more recent cases moving into Southeast Asia, Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam in particular. So they are looking to diversify their planning and also their supply chains just to try and remove some of the reliance on the bigger ports necessarily in China.
Okay. Lyndon, out of curiosity, I'm just wondering, when a client comes to you with a delayed shipment or capacity crunch, what's your first question or first move?
Yeah, look, we always want to look for solutions towards the customers and work out. Probably the major important question is when do they need the cargo by? So we can then work backwards to look to see how we can move the cargo in a timely fashion, but also make it economic for the customer as well. So we will also look at various options, whether it be LCL to keep the supply chain moving. We may ship a number of pallets over a period of time just to keep that supply chain moving and the cargo on its way. Or we might look at other products such as air sea. We might move it from Europe to Asia via air freight, and then from Asia to Oceania via LCL. It just obviously cuts out some of the transit time from Europe to Asia and doesn't affect the whole cost of air freight from Europe to Oceania.
I see. Let's zoom out to the geopolitics of this industry. Asia's at the crossroads of some serious flashpoints, from US-China tensions to Red Sea disruptions. And you mentioned earlier about China and Southeast Asia. How are these global currents shaping ocean freight across the region?
Yeah, globally, we're still seeing geopolitical themes impact freight strategies in ways that ripple across the trades, including Asia to Oceania. Equipment isn't circulating as freely as it should be. We've got the blank sailings that are continually happening, reducing the overall port and also reducing the overall port coverage in some instances. For Southeast Asia, we've seen a few cancellations around services, but so the volume has come back online during the current 90-day pause. But the uncertainty really reinforces how interconnected global trades are. We're also seeing the dynamics, as we discussed, shift between traditional hubs like China and emerging origins such as Vietnam, Malaysia and Thailand as companies look to diversify their sourcing and product spaces.
Yeah. So do you think Southeast Asia is stepping up as a bigger logistics hub in response to these shifts? And who's emerging as a serious contender?
Yeah, look, it certainly is. And we probably saw this earlier through COVID, where companies tried to diversify away from China as well and into Southeast Asia. We saw them go back to China, probably because of the quality of the product. But as we're seeing it now, companies are going back into particularly Vietnam, Malaysia and Thailand. They seem to be the three keys. Vietnam probably is really doing the best of those three as well. So we are seeing that diversify, but unfortunately we can't just switch the supply chain from China to Vietnam overnight. There needs to be some infrastructure done in some of those regions as well to be able to take capacity away from China.
And it's not just about movement, isn't it? There's also the rise of regulation, from carbon disclosures to ESG-linked freight goals. Is that changing how logistics leaders operate?
Yeah, look, compliance is really, really critical as well, particularly around, emissions and carbon footprints. We've seen the EU ETS trading system being introduced. We've got the fuel EU measures that have been introduced, where everyone's trying to increase the share of renewable and low carbon fuels. These add cost and complexity, especially for smaller shippers. So we're really looking to help customers adapt to these rules while balancing cost efficiency. Compliance is critical in all parts of the trade.
And Lyndon, we're talking about compliance, we talk about movement. What's the most common misconception clients have about how ocean freight works today?
I think probably the biggest area is the transit and port acceptance. The port congestion has been a critical one, particularly where people are using transshipment or relay services. The connection in the likes of Singapore or Malaysia has been a problem over the period of time, and they just don't understand the large capacity, I guess, of freight moving through these hubs on a transshipment basis to connect with the next vessel. So probably that's an area where we need to educate customers a little bit better to plan for that extended transit time and lead time in their platform.
Oh, that's an insightful point. And moving on to something that's gaining more importance in the industry as well, sustainability, which used to be a nice to have, but is now a business imperative. So in Asia Pacific, what's the real status of decarbonization in shipping? Is it making its way from ambition to action? Yeah,
look, we've seen a strong momentum on sustainability. Green corridors, low emission fuels, biofuels, methanol. Vessel design upgrades are gaining ground. Ports are also investing in shore power and infrastructure improvements, which is helping. It carries new vessel order booklets, including a lot more LNG and green vessels that will be delivered over the next 12 to 24 months.
And what's the uptake like from your clients?
Look, they're all very interested in it, and they all want to see some reporting on it. Unfortunately, when you start to talk about carbon footprints and removing part of it, there does sometimes come a cost to that, and they tend to maybe stay away from it. But that certainly is a discussion point in each and every meeting that you tend to have with a customer now around their footprint and what that looks like and how they can reduce it.
Things are definitely evolving in this space. You've been in the industry for a while now. What's changed the most since you started?
Oh, look, it has been a long time, but look, it's certainly not just about moving freight anymore. The technology's probably been the most critical component that you've had to improve on, and C.H. Robinson as a leading company within that technology space, and our own platform being Navisphere, we're trying to make sure that we're helping take out the anticipated delays, optimise routes, and respond quickly to disruptions. So that's probably been the biggest change, where it's just not moving a container from A to B anymore. There's a lot that goes on in between that.
Interesting. All right, Lyndon, crystal ball time. If you had to spotlight one major trend that will define ocean freight in Asia Pacific over the next 12 to perhaps 18 months, what would it be?
Look, it's crystal balling. They're never really clean at the moment, although we're guessing a little bit. But certainly, look, the outcome is optimistic. We see that the demand and supply will certainly settle down. There's some certain issues going on around the globe at the moment which made changes to the industry. But look, I think it will continue to evolve. It will continue to grow, and it is such an important part of the global economic position. We have to get cargo from place to place. Manufacturing is being isolated in certain areas. So I think the industry will continue to evolve and grow, and it'll just change, and freight forwarders and importers and exporters need to continue to change with that.
One word comes to mind when you were talking about all this. I think resilience is key. It's probably the best strategy to survive, I suppose.
Yeah, look, it's certainly we've got to catch, cry, fit, fast and focused, and it's something that we need to do to make sure we stay ahead of the game. But I think importers and exporters, supply chain participants need to stay ahead of the game to be viable in the industry. I think we need to bring solutions, and that's certainly what we're trying to do for our customers today.
Lyndon, last one for you before we let you go. What's your one piece of advice for logistics teams navigating Asia Pacific today?
Yeah, look, it comes back to the good old communication and collaboration. I think as long as you're working closely with your supply chain, your customers, you will get the right outcome. And it is a matter of just working through each and every disruption that we have and making sure that we have a positive outcome for all involved.
Thank you so much, Lyndon. This has been such a sharp and practical conversation. Thanks for helping us map the big shifts happening across the ocean freight world.
Thanks, Lindley. Have a good day.
Here is Lyndon McGrath, Director for Ocean Freight in Oceania at C.H. Robinson, one of the largest and most connected logistics platforms globally. You're listening to Industry Insight. Keep it here on Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.